on Real Good at Doing Stuff, the most exciting TV show you've ever seen. We're gonna do something a little different. We're not gonna talk about tuning today. Tuning sucks. We're moving on to a little bit of engine building tech today, and what we're talking about in particular is the LT based engine of turbo engine of Doug Cooks from Motion Raceworks. Doug recently won the Rocky Mountain Raceweek, or whatever it's called. I may be getting that back wrong, but I think it's like a 1,500 mile drive drag week style event. He won his class, almost won the whole thing overall, I believe. We're gonna tear his motor apart, look at some stuff that we've done to it. So far, we've provided tune-up assistance and some head work, and we're gonna tear things apart, freshen things up, maybe make it a little better for his future outings, and also look at what we did in the past to get ready for Rocky Mountain Race Week to try to keep it together in the head department. So anyhow, let's rip it down and see what we got. All right, enough with the weird rock and roll. All right, let's talk about valve seats a little bit in the turbo application. Shortly before the Rocky Mountain Drag Week race, Doug called me to talk about an issue with his heads. And this is not a reflection on the manufacturer at all. This is a problem that occurs in pretty much anybody's inline heads. It's the nature of the beast with a turbo. He had some concerns about some erosion and problems between the valve seats, and was asking me about it. So let's look at this. I got some pictures here. Okay, if you can see right here, we have some chipping away between the seats. Between these seats, there's an area about 30 thousandths thick right here of aluminum. So you got seat, and in between 30 thousandths or so of aluminum. And in a turbo application with a bunch of power, there's a lot of heat involved, a bunch of pressure, and the aluminum loses hardness here a lot of times from all this heat. And what'll happen is a lot of times it'll kind of squirt out and rise up between the seats and kind of erupt out of there. And let's see if we got another picture. Yeah, you can see here. Actually, between the seats here, there's nothing. The aluminum has come out. It's I call it erupting out, but it just loses heat, treat, gets soft. These seats are pressed in, right, into a hard aluminum surface, there's, let's say, anywhere from 5 to 10 thousandths press fit. And that's what holds the seat in. That's the reason they don't fall out when you turn the head upside down, right? If they lose press, they do fall out. So if you drop a valve or drop a seat, if you drop a seat, that's what's happened. And sometimes you'll drop a valve, sometimes you drop a seat, sometimes you do a combination of both. But that's a lot of times what happens is it loses press, falls out. So if you have aluminum coming out of here, well, guess what? You're going to lose press. And sooner or later, this is going to get worse and worse until it drops the seat, which is obviously to be avoided. That's not going to be good. So anyhow, I tell Doug to send the heads to me, and we do. Fixing this is a little bit of a trick because, and I've tried to fix this type of thing with various methodologies over the years, and with varying degrees of success. You can pull the seats out and weld this back up here, and that'll work in a lot of applications fine. But with something that's making a ton of power like this, the truth is the weld, no matter what you do, is never quite as hard, right? And a lot of times, you know, it kind of softens the surrounding metal, and it can be substandard. It can work, but not as good as it should. So we want to do something where he can hopefully get some life out of these heads and be a more permanent repair. So what we did is cut the seats out and then oversize the seat area considerably, and then press in the intake seat first, so that basically this counterbore gets cut first, an intake seat goes in, and after that seat is pressed in, we cut this counterbore and press in a copper beryllium seat, right? Now what this does is it eliminates any metal between the seats. It's seat to seat. The exhaust seat here is cut into the iron intake seat. Now, part of the reason we did this, the iron is pretty damn hard. It's pretty stout and rigid, right? The copper helps to get some of this heat out of this thing. It's turbo, the exhaust valve, and everything gets extremely hot. Heat is the enemy of aluminum heads. A lot of heat is gonna soften the aluminum. You soften it, things start going wrong. It gets bad, right? So the sooner we can dissipate the heat evenly instead of focusing in it, getting real hot and getting certain spots hot, the better things going to be. So the idea is get heat out, and beryllium seats, excellent way to do that. But like I said, what we did here is we oversized everything, and the exhaust seat now pushes into this. So now these are press fit against each other, right? The press of one directly affects the other, so they kind of lock each other in here. And we're eliminating this super slim area of aluminum. We're just taking it completely out of the picture. Now, another issue that we're covering here is that we're increasing the seating area, or the area that the seat sits on. When you have an engine that makes a ton of cylinder pressure, that pressure is, you know, the seat. There's a certain amount of seat area that the seat is sitting on. Obviously, if you, let's say, put bigger valves in something and open the throats up or whatever, you're reducing that. And at some point, that can be a problem. If you figure up that area, that square inches of area, you need X amount to be able to sustain the pressure that's on a given size of valve. The more you get under this, the more you can get into trouble. So we've also increased the OD of the seat considerably. Not crazy, but it looks worse than it is with this picture because there's the valve job hasn't been cut. But we've increased the OD, which increases the seating area after the valve job is done and the throat is opened back up where it needs to be. So now the seat is sitting on a larger pad, and that goes a long way in a turbo engine. You know, you've probably heard of some motors are notorious, like 4.6 stock heads are notorious for dropping seats, because by the time you get everything right, the seat's kind of skinny and it's not sitting on much. So what happens is it beats that aluminum out. Next thing you know, it loses press, drops a seat. You know, one of the things you have to do with stock type 4.6 heads is put bigger seats in them from the get-go, as far as big power deals. So anyhow, let's look here kind of at after we cut the valve job, this is kind of what we're looking at. You can see where the seat sits on the aluminum here. Another thing, when you take apart heads like this, you can often look for signs of detonation right here at the area where the seat meets the head. If you have an engine that's detonating a lot of times it will roll up a burr right there. And usually in the weakest part of the head, which on an inline head is a lot of times right here because it's real thin here between the ports. But there'll be a burr rolled up. So a lot of times you can tell which cylinders in your engine are happy or pissed off just by examining, I call it forensic tuning, but by examining this area around the seat when you take it apart. There's a lot of places in a motor where you can look for clues on things like that, but that's one of them. There'll be a burr, a sharp burr here, maybe all the way around, maybe only in certain areas. Now, when this valve job is cut, you can see the interlock here. This is the intake seat. This right here is the seating area where the valve sits. Just outside of it, we've got exhaust seat all the way into the intake. But now there's no aluminum here. And therefore, we've eliminated, hopefully, one failure point. Now, anyhow, we did this. We also welded up his direct injection port here, where the factory style direct injection, which he no longer uses. And made this modification, sent it back to him, and he went on to win the race. This one here, we need to do some guide work. It's got some exposed bronze guides that are chipping away. We'll fix that. But everything worked out good so far with this little modification, and he won the race and made all the money, and here we are. So that's all for today. We'll be back with some more tuning stuff. We're going to do all kinds of stuff on this channel. Be tuning sometimes, engine stuff like this, racing stuff, you name it, we're going to do it all. But anyhow, that's all for today.